Welcome back to What's on My Needles, and I'm starting a new personal project. So this one will not be available on my store, but there should be enough detail explanation here that you can figure it out. I'm going to be making what I'm calling a circular shrug um, out of this yarn. So it's going to be pulled from the center, so that's why this side looks funny. And start a center and work out making two slits for the armholes, and then it will fold over kind of like a fortune cookie, but not quite. Um, so let me get everything all situated and I will get going. So this is yarn that was given to me for Christmas. So this is the only skein that I have to make this out of. There was a second skein that came in the gift, but it is a different color, so I can't just combine them. So I'm going to start with a magic loop. So I've laid the tail of the yarn over my hand. I'm going to lift up the working yarn over the first two fingers and lay it across. Now, I believe I've said this a couple times on this channel, but just as a refresher, you can do this with a crochet hook or with knitting needles, whichever one is more comfortable for you. So I'm dipping in, lifting up a loop, and then putting the first loop over the second. Normally this is an amigurumi technique. I'm adapting it to knitting, and it makes it so that I can work center out. Just like one of the yarns from last year, this is a 4-strand and is a 4-strand that is not twisted together, so I will have to be incredibly careful as I'm working this, and that I don't split the yarn or I don't pick up just one of the 4 strands. Okay. It also is going to make counting stitches a little harder. 6, 2 more. On a crochet hook, I typically don't have to drop the loop, but I didn't want to go find my crochet hook this morning. Okay. Now, at this point, I'm going to move the first 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, off to a second needle and tighten this up. And I'm going to leave the tail on the outside, so the side that will eventually be away from my body. And we're just going to knit. So insert, loop around, and pull through. I have heard some very fun ways of describing this, especially if you're teaching little kids or anytime really that you're teaching a brand new knitter. There are some very clean ones when you're teaching little kids. The one that I like is stab them, wring their necks, scoop out their guts, and throw them off the cliff. But that's just because I have a sick sense of humor. Okay. So now is where the actual pattern part comes. So in this case, I'm going to be doing knit 1, yarn over 1, and I will be continuing the yarn over 1 every other row. But at this point, it's actually going to get way too tight to just do it on 2 needles. I will need to switch over to doing it on 3. And I'm doing this style of increase so that there's a little bit more design on this particular piece, since I am effectively just making a giant circle. Okay, so I'm going to So now that I've done an increase round, I'm going to do a plain knit round. And it's going to continue like that, though I will show the next increase round for quite a while. This is actually going to be a fairly easy, quote, and maybe boring project. And that is where I messed up there, which is fine. I am vaguely double checking that I've actually gotten all the stitches correct anytime that I do the increases. I am going to be doing increases 8 times evenly spaced around every other row. That should in fact make this lay flat or relatively close to flat. Okay. But this is also not going to be the easiest thing to see for quite a while. So this time I'm going to knit 1, 2, and yarn over, 1, 2, yarn over, and so on. Because there's a yarn over at the end of each needle on these rows, I will not be liking to end, or I will try not to end, at the end of the round that has the yarn overs or at the end of a needle with yarn overs. And that's just personal preference so that I don't lose my yarn overs. It is one of the problems with working on double pointed needles rather than circulars. But as you guys can probably guess, considering that this is just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, I will in fact be needing to move it out to circular needles. So after I get this needle done so that my stitches are secure, I will actually go off camera and work on this for a while. I will come back when it is time to move it over to circular needles. So be back in a bit. So I've been going for a little bit now, and that is the height or the width of one of the wedges, so from the first stitch to the yarn over. And it's time to switch over to circular needles because it's getting a little snug on the double points. So not hard, not intimidating, but I'm going to work across from the double point onto the circular. We're just going to keep going and going and going. This is a yarn over round, so this is an increase round. So there's my increase. When I am done with this round, I am going to put in a stitch marker to mark the end of the round. And that way I don't have to be guessing where I am as far as beginning of a round. But let me get that stitch secured off. So this is what the spiral looks like so far. And then the spiral will just continue out all the way through this particular pattern. But that's going to be it for this week. Come back in 2 weeks and I'll be showing how I do the bind off and cast back on for the sleeves or armholes, and then I will see you in 2 weeks.